Welcome to Kankakee, where almost one-third of the population lives in poverty, where the population continues to decline, and where an almanac once ranked it dead last, earning it the nickname Armpit of America, back when late-night TV was an actual thing. But at least you can buy a house here for the price of a used car.
Winning.
And you have plenty of dollar stores.
Winning.
And you have plenty of smoke shops.
Winning.
And you have plenty of liquor stores.
Duh. Winning.
And at least a nice-looking courthouse for whenever you get arrested.
Well, to make sure that never happens again.
Look, Kankakee has had a rough go of it over the years. There's still some positives that you can take from the city, but it has a long way to go if it ever wants to recapture what it once had. To see where things stand today, make sure to stick around to the very end, where I'll give Kankakee a Chris livability score. Kankakee is about 60 miles southwest from Chicago. How long it takes depends on the Dan Ryan, so it could take 1 hour or it could take the rest of your life. On paper, Kankakee looks smaller than it actually feels. A big reason for that is because of its neighbors, Bradley and Bourbonnais. Problem is, the two towns to the north combined have a larger population than Kankakee itself. And let's be honest, they're both nicer places to live these days too, so anyone who moves to this area is probably going to skip on Kankakee because, well, options, yo.
What do you mean by that?
I'll tell you what I mean by that, but first, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. That's basically the YouTube version of holding the door open for somebody at Casey's. You don't have to do it, but if you don't, everybody notices and you're basically a jerk, so yeah. Still don't want to like or subscribe? Well, alright then, alright. Looks like some bad karma is going to come your way. Don't say I didn't warn you. Well, there's some notable things that you'll come across when first visiting Kankakee. If you're coming into town from the west, you'll likely notice this, which is the old Roper factory. Or if you're coming in from the east, maybe you'll notice this, which is the old General Foods factory. Or maybe you'll just notice how the north side of town looks no different than many other small to mid-sized Rust Belt cities. But more on all of that later. Once you get past some of that, you'll make it into downtown, which honestly doesn't look too bad. You have the old railroad depot, which serves as an Amtrak station today. You have the Majestic Theater, which is a historic local gym that's managed to survive blight. But standing above all of that is the Kankakee County Courthouse, which arguably looks better than some state capitol buildings. Construction on the Kankakee County Courthouse was completed in 1912, but it was designed by Zachary Taylor Davis, who also designed Comiskey Park and Wrigley Field. Only difference, at Wrigley, you get peanuts and Cracker Jacks. At the Kankakee County Courthouse, you get probation and a fine. Zachary Taylor Davis, what up Zachary Taylor Davis, was also selected as one of the finalists to design Soldier Field where the Chicago Bears play, but instead, they went with someone else. Probably the same geniuses who thought that putting a giant spaceship on top of a historic stadium was a good call. Anyway, the Majestic Theater was built in 1912, and according to visitkankakee.com, it's one of the oldest theaters in the Chicagoland area today.
Visit Kankakee County. We're only 50 miles south of Chicago, only 49 miles further than you probably wanted to drive. But we got the Majestic Theater, so come on by. Do it now.
Sure, you can get inside Kankakee County after driving for 50 miles south from downtown Chicago, but you'll need to add another 10 miles before you get to the Majestic Theater. Also, is Kankakee County a part of Chicagoland? I'd say that's highly questionable, considering that Kankakee is its own metro area. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Downtown Kankakee doesn't really look all that bad. There aren't too many empty storefronts. You know, it doesn't look run down, it looks fine. At first glance, it looks like the biggest thing would be that most of downtown Kankakee is office space rather than shops, bars, and restaurants. In other words, it seems like there could be more things to do around here for a night out on the town. When I went through, it was earlier on a Saturday during the summer, and it looked like there was some kind of farmer's market going on, so that's good. I mean, nothing says it's a summer weekend in Kankakee like seeing folding tables with corn on the cob. Another notable building in town that I didn't get to when I was here was the B. Harley Bradley House, which sits along the Kankakee River just east of the downtown core. The house was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and today there are guided house tours, or you can even rent out the house as a wedding venue. Between the courthouse, the Majestic, and Frank Lloyd Wright's Riverside Airbnb, downtown has a few highlights, but to really understand Kankakee, you've got to dig deep into some history. Kankakee was basically founded as a stop along the Illinois Central Railroad in 1853. Back then, getting a railroad stop was like getting a Costco today. Instant population boom. Kankakee County was formed in 1853, and Kankakee has always been the county seat. That year, a town was platted with 49 residential and commercial blocks, with all lots being filled by January 14, 1854, which, if you think about it, is probably the fastest that Kankakee has ever sold out of anything. The plat was bounded by Chestnut Street to the north, Chicago Avenue to the east, River Street to the south, and Entrance Avenue to the west, aka the original Kankakee Monopoly Board. By the end of the year, Kankakee saw a few additional developers, and the population was just over 1,000 people. Fast forward to 1865, and Kankakee became an official city. You know, with a mayor, city council, the whole deal. And by the 1890s, Kankakee County was home to several schools, businesses, and all kinds of shiny new developments. The city even had its own amusement park to draw people in because nothing says, "we've made it" like Ferris wheels and funnel cakes. The limestone industry was huge, and of course, the Kankakee State Hospital had a huge footprint in town, which I'll get into more of that later in the video. Then of course, you have the Rust Belt Starter Pack. Only thing is that they didn't know that it was the Rust Belt Starter Pack at the time. Back then, it just looked like progress. You know, smokestacks, train whistles, and the faint smell of asbestos. Throughout the early 20th century, several major industrial operations took place here. First and foremost, you had the Florence Stove Company. This is where the factory stood. Actually, before it was a stove factory starting in 1902, this site was home to a factory that made sewing machines, pianos, and organs. It wasn't until 1915 when it became a stove-making factory. From 1915 to 1923, it was owned by a company called Easiest Way, which sounds like less of a stove brand and sounds more like that of a late-night infomercial.
Hey, it's Vince Offa here with my new product called the Sticky. You're gonna clean your home in a quickie when you use your Sticky. Now here's the deal.
Come on, Vince, it's a stovetop. We're trying to clean stovetops here, not entire homes.
You blew it!
From 1923 to 1958, it was the Florence Stove Company, and from 1958 to its closing in 1982, it was owned by the Roper Corporation. In 1982, Roper decided to move its manufacturing to a plant in Lafayette, Georgia. Reasons for the move included operating costs and outdated facilities. Translation, it was cheaper somewhere else. Additionally, the Bradley plant closed the same year, and the property was given to the city of Bradley, only for most of it to be destroyed in a fire in 1986. I mean, if you haven't learned by now, the Rust Belt economy runs on two things: factory closures and insurance claims. And hey, before we jump into the rest of Kankakee's economic heartbreak, go do me a favor. Go follow me on my other social media accounts, because if you think this video is depressing, wait until you see how it looks when it's chopped up into 30-second clips on Instagram, or better yet, TikTok, where nothing says content like Rust Belt Decay set to a stupid song and dance. Thanks. Some of the companies included Armstrong Cork, which cranked out asphalt tile, A.O. Smith, which made air conditioning and industrial equipment, and Borden Soy, squeezing soybeans into oil, flakes, and feed. Basically, if it made your house livable, flooring, AC, groceries, or stoves, yeah, Kankakee had you covered. But the real heavy hitters, along with Roper, included General Foods and Armour Pharmaceutical. General Foods first opened their factory in 1938. However, since 1996, it's been the largest abandoned building in all of Kankakee. So if you're keeping score, that's 58 years of production, followed by 29 years of bad spray paint art. General Foods wasn't just some little side operation either. At its peak, this place was massive. We're talking a dog food plant that pumped out Gaines brand chow by the ton. The smell? Let's just say you never had to wonder if the factory was running that day. By 1954, General Foods surpassed Roper as being the largest employer in town, employing about 1,300 at the time, with the payroll as large as $6 million annually.
It's a massive plant, one of the biggest in the world.
Not one of the biggest in the world, but definitely one of the biggest in Kankakee, and around here, that meant something. But after decades of operation, General Foods went through mergers, ownership changes, and eventually the axe fell in the mid-90s. The plant shut its doors in 1996, and the building has been a giant concrete reminder of what used to be ever since. Basically, it's the city's biggest monument to broken promises. What has held up over the years, however, is the bloodwork industry. Wait, what? Yes. The bloodwork industry. In 1951, Armour Laboratories of Chicago bought a 172-acre property north of Bradley to build a $5 million pharmaceutical plant, and by 1953, the facility was up and running. The lab specialized in plasma-based products, hemophilia treatments, and other pharmaceuticals. Translation: they were basically turning Kankakee into one of the Midwest's biggest biotech hubs before biotech hubs was even a phrase. I couldn't find just how many employees Armour had during its peak, but my best guess would be that it was in the 2,000 to 4,000 range. Either way, it was a massive plant. Things were going great until the 1980s, when contaminated blood products linked to HIV and hepatitis C infected thousands worldwide. And people think those days were the time to be alive? Yeah, I think not. But overall, this company has been a highly respected one in the industry. Armour was eventually absorbed into CSL Behring, which still operates in Bradley and remains as one of the top employers in Kankakee County today. So yeah, those CSL plasma storefronts that you see in rundown strip malls in bad parts of town, the ones where people are literally selling their blood to make rent? You know, maybe I used to do that, maybe not, but, well, yeah, this is where that business model was born. So there you go. Sticking with the medical theme, sort of, this is what's most commonly referred to as the Kankakee State Hospital. Established in 1877 as the Illinois Eastern Hospital for the Insane, it was renamed to the Kankakee State Hospital in 1910. In 1974, it was renamed yet again, being called the Samuel H. Shapiro Development Center in honor of the 34th Illinois governor, who served for 1 year. But hey, he did live in Kankakee, so yeah, they decided to name this after him. As you drive around the campus today, some of the buildings are abandoned. Some of the campus looks kind of eerie, but it's still a fully functioning facility. Even though it once employed much more than it does today, it's still one of the largest employers in Kankakee, and allegedly the place employs just over 1,200 according to the Illinois Department of Human Services. Yeah, I don't know how you employ 4/10 of a person, but I'm sure HR has it all figured out. Today, the Shapiro Center provides services for adults with intellectual disabilities, severe behavioral issues, or other significant medical needs. Basically, it's people who need support in every part of daily life. Right now, there are about 465 residents here with an average age of 49, but back in the 1950s, the place housed as many as 4,500 residents. That's not just a hospital, that's an entire small city where everyone shares the same cafeteria food. In 1999, Places Rated Almanac placed the Kankakee metro area dead last out of all metro areas in the U.S. As a result, David Letterman couldn't resist and named Kankakee the Armpit of America. Not exactly Chamber of Commerce material. Not only did Places Rated Almanac rank the Kankakee metro area as the worst place to live in the U.S., but in the U.S. and Canada. That was 1999, which was arguably when Kankakee hit rock bottom. You know, job losses piling up, crime rates climbing, and the whole place radiating that "don't move here" energy. Now sure, whether a city is the best or the worst, that's always subjective, but what isn't up for debate is the downfall of Kankakee. I mean, more than half of the factory jobs are gone. The population has been steadily shrinking for decades, and downtown looks more like an office park than a place to actually hang out. What used to be a booming manufacturing hub is no longer that. If you've followed my channel for a while, you already know that Illinois is absolutely littered with Kankakee lookalikes once you get outside of the greater Chicago area. You know? Industrial wastelands as far as the eye can see. You've got Rockford, Decatur, basically all of Metro East. You've got Danville, Kewanee, Streator, Peoria, Rock Island, Galesburg, Freeport, Cairo, and let's not forget the dying no-name coal mining towns that are scattered all throughout the state. They're everywhere. Why do you think I keep coming back to the land of Lincoln for content? It's like an all-you-can-film buffet for Rust Belt decline. That said, I wouldn't put Kankakee in Illinois' bottom 5. When you factor in Bradley and Bourbonnais to the north, plus some of the smaller towns like Momence nearby, Kankakee County actually has a little bit more going for it than places like Danville, Galesburg, Metro East, the entire southern half of the state, or Decatur, so yeah. Kankakee is definitely not the worst metro area in Illinois, meaning that it can't be that for the entire country. Now to dive deeper into what it's like here today, we're entering the north side of town on the east side of town, but the most recent population estimates puts Kankakee at 24,384. That's a slight raise from the 2020 census, but a far cry from the 1990 census when the city hit its peak population at just over 30,000. What's unusual is that usually you'll see cities like Kankakee peak in the 1960s or 70s, but Kankakee was able to hold on until 1990, and then the bottom dropped out. Since then, 2 census counts have dealt some brutal hits. In 2000, the city lost 11.2% of its population, or about 3,500 people, and in 2020, it happened again. Another 3,500 people gone, or about 12.7%. Anytime a city sheds double digits of its population in just 10 years, it's not just a red flag, that's a tornado siren. What are some other big red flags? Let's start with the poverty rate, 27.8%. That's nearly 1 out of every 3 Kankakee residents that live in poverty. The median household income backs that up. In Kankakee, it's just $45,119 per year. For perspective, the Illinois median is $81,702. Thanks, of course, to all the elitists in the northern and western Chicago suburbs inflating those numbers. When it comes to housing, the median value of an owner-occupied home in Kankakee is $105,500, compared to $250,500 statewide. On the surface, that sounds like great affordability, but in all reality, there are a lot of reasons as to why it's so cheap here. Not good reasons either. Education data doesn't help the case. Only 81% of adults in town are high school graduates compared to 90% for all of Illinois. When potential employers see that number, they don't just hesitate, they run for the hills. Same thing goes for college degrees. Only 12.5% of Kankakee adults have a bachelor's degree or higher. That means, and let this sink in, a higher percentage of adults in Kankakee are living in poverty than those who have a college degree. Pretty sad. And of course, just like most Rust Belt cities this size, Kankakee has its show-off neighborhood, The part of town where the homes are big, the lawns are manicured, and you wonder if the rest of the city just forgot to RSVP to the American dream. Big historic houses that make you double check if you're still in Kankakee or if you accidentally drove into some gated community that misplaced its gate. Well, hey, really quick, if you want to support the channel, consider joining Team Invader. You can also join Team Invader Plus, where I'll have a live Q&A on the first Saturday of each month, where you can talk to me and I can talk to you and we can be friends.
I like you. Do you like me?
All of the money collected from YouTube channel memberships will go towards future travel expenses, so I can continue to make new videos on new places. But this video isn't about the surrounding towns that help balance out the highs and lows of Kankakee County, no. This video is about the city of Kankakee. And the real question is, where does Kankakee rank in livability? I say, let's break it down, and not 1999 Places Rated Almanac style, no. We're gonna break this down Chris Harden style, with Chris's livability score. For this video, I will introduce yet another category that I'm adding to the mix for the Chris livability score, while adjusting the criteria of another category, and I'll explain when we get to those, but first, it's education.
Education.
Kankakee High School performs really badly. On the SATs, only 4% of students score proficiently in math, and only 12% score proficiently in reading. Not too long ago, I mentioned how only 81% of adults in Kankakee have their high school diplomas. Well, that number is going to look even worse in the future because currently only 71% of students graduate from Kankakee High School. There are 4-year bachelor programs that have higher graduation rates than that. This is insanely bad. Bad, bad, bad. Nearby Bradley and Bourbonnais have much, much better schools. Translation, don't move to Kankakee if you're trying to raise a family. Education gets a 3 out of 20.
Crime.
Crime isn't really all that bad here. It used to be a lot worse. Maybe most of the crime here today is going unreported. I don't know. Hard to tell if that's so, because if that's true, well, it's unreported crime, undocumented. So yeah, kind of hard to tell. But the violent crime rate, as it stands right now, is 476 for every 100,000 residents, while the property crime rate is 2,643 for every 100,000 residents. I need to see it continue to be that low and get even lower for consecutive years to come if I'm going to believe that the crime here has really been lowered. I'll give it a 10 out of 20.
Downtown.
Downtown is okay, not bad, not great. Would like to see a wider selection of shops, bars, and restaurants. The greater Kankakee area, aka Kankakee County, definitely has the population to support a downtown area with more life. Hopefully it can happen one of these days, but for now, it gets a 12 out of 20, but the potential is there for something much greater than that.
Economy.
The local Kankakee economy sucks. It's much better if you're in one of the surrounding towns, or even in some of the more isolated small towns within the county, but definitely not all of them because there are some not so lively small towns within the countryside here. Look, there is no hope for Kankakee to turn things around anytime soon. Sorry, there's just not. Anyone who moves here while trying to escape the overtaxed Chicagoland area is just going to settle down in either Bradley or Bourbonnais instead. And there's just not that many people looking to move to this area for Kankakee to get a real boost, nor will there be anytime soon. The future economic outlook looks grim. It gets a 4 out of 20.
Environment.
As I went over thoroughly, if you weren't listening, you suck. Bad job by you. Just kidding, people. Kankakee has a strong industrial history. Not much of it is all that toxic, though. There are a few facilities on the outskirts of town that the EPA has had to tie on over the years, but overall, nothing too serious. Environment gets a 13 out of 20.
Parks and Rec.
So this is the new category in the Chris livability score. If you're from Kankakee, you should feel special because this is the first town that I'm including the score in with a video. I've redone all of my previous scores for cities, but this is the first video where I actually talk about this category within the video. So, alright, so Kankakee's best parks are outside of the city limits. Kankakee State Park to the northwest along the Kankakee River is a nice little area out in the sticks to go fishing and have some peace and quiet, I suppose. There are some nice little parks scattered throughout the city, but nothing too crazy. There's the Kankakee Country Club and an ice arena that's a part of the Kankakee Community College campus. Those would probably be the highlights. In all honesty, I think that Kankakee could use some work in the Parks and Rec category because it does seem to be lacking. It gets an 11 out of 20.
Scenery.
So this basically replaces the old recreation score that I had. I used to base the recreation score on having things to do outdoor activity-wise, but a lot of people complained in the comments over the last few years about how the recreation score didn't really make sense, and it took me about 2 years, but everybody was right. It didn't really make much sense. And now it does, so shut up and stop complaining. Just kidding, people. Well, for scenery, it's northeastern Illinois. What do you want from me? There's flat farmlands and the Kankakee River. The fog makes it prettier, I guess. Scenery gets a 4 out of 20.
History.
One thing I didn't mention about Kankakee so far is the rich Indian history of the area, specifically the Potawatomi tribe. Also, just east of here used to be the Grand Kankakee Marsh. Most of it has been drained for farmland, but it was once a large geographic feature. In fact, it was once one of the largest geographic features in all of the Midwest. It was really just a giant swampland that surrounded the Kankakee River, mostly in Indiana, trailing northeast, almost reaching South Bend. Anyway, there is a strong history of manufacturing here in Kankakee, specifically stoves, but other things too, and I talked about all of that earlier, so history gets a 14 out of 20.
Amenities.
The only big shopping area in town is on the far south side. That's where the Walmart is, the Tractor Supply is, where an Aldi is, and a few hotels. There's also a giant, mostly ugly, mostly abandoned shopping center on the northwest side of town that doesn't offer much. Downtown doesn't have much, the east side doesn't have much, and the west side certainly doesn't have much. Here's the thing about amenities. In populated areas, such as Kankakee County, where you have about 55 to 60,000 people in the core urban area, so to speak, you'll usually find the amenities in the wealthier, less crime-ridden areas. In Kankakee's case, that's Bradley and Bourbonnais. So if you're in Kankakee, you'll have to drive to get to the best amenities of any type that the area has to offer. So it gets a 6 out of 20.
Cost of living.
If I were to live in Kankakee, I would look for a home on the southeast side of town, or the area that's on the north side of the Kankakee River as you head southeast from downtown. And if you look on Zillow, there are plenty of affordable prices to choose from in that quadrant of town. So that's all good and dandy. That house I just showed you though, the one that was listed for just under $200,000, yeah, the annual property taxes on that are $7,000 a year. So -1 for the taxes and the cost of living gets a 19 out of 20. All in all, the Chris Livability score for Kankakee, Illinois is 96 out of 200, putting it towards the bottom tier out of all of the cities that I've done this for so far. Unfortunately, I don't see the population trend changing anytime soon for Kankakee. I think that both Bradley and Bourbonnais will steal the thunder for the area for the foreseeable future, and maybe, quite frankly, for the rest of our lifetimes. Meanwhile, if you want to see more of Kankakee, I drove through this city for about 2.5 hours. That being said, I'll have a second video showing you all of the footage that I filmed but didn't use in this video in my second video, which will be uploaded on my second channel called Chris Harden's Video Archives. The link will be down below for the video once it's uploaded, so feel free to check that out. Meanwhile, in a separate video, I was able to check out some of the nearby small towns. I even had a chance to talk to the mayor of Grant Park, and she was able to give me a grand tour of the village of Grant Park, and you can check that video out right here. Hope to see you there. Peace.